directors of Modena Infrastructure, and I'll be your host this afternoon. Thanks so much for giving up your free time at home. I know that we have a lot of that at the moment, but thanks again for joining us in this Enhancing Collaboration with BIM360 webinar with our panel discussion. So before I get started, I just want to introduce our panel to you so that you know who the questions are directed to. So Hannes Wagner is the CEO at Structured Projects, which was founded in 2013. He's driven by the desire to bring positive change for his clients and his country. For him, excellence is a non-negotiable element. Then Herman Boerdenbender is the BIM manager at Boertman and Partners. He has worked in multiple projects around the globe of varying designs and developments. Herman is constantly looking for new and better ways that can disrupt the traditional process and develop a collaborative mindset across the industry. Lastly is Gary Mansfield. He's the BIM manager at CKR Consulting Engineers. He's very well known in the industry for his enthusiasm and his passion. Gary implements and encourages new technology while ensuring that ROI is met with their design technology. Then last but not least, I have Michiel Oudendal, who I'm sure most of you already know and doesn't require much of an introduction. He's one of Modena's senior application engineers with many years of expertise in the field, as well as taking the role now as an Autodesk software educator and a workflow implementer. Michiel loves to assist people in learning more and ensuring they improve their workflow environments. So without further ado, I'm going to get started on some questions. Please feel free to ask some questions in the chat box as well. Michiel will be handling these, and if need be, if anything does arise, he will direct it to our panel. So I'll start off with a very simple question that I'm sure most of us can answer quite fluently, but we'll start with all of them. Herman, if we can start with you, if you can just let us know what software you're currently using within your work environment, specifically in the AEC collection and the BIM environment.
Yes, so actually Boertman and Partners, after Autodesk did a switch from the building suites to the AEC collections, we had kind of a big surprise at the beginning, because then we realized that we had a lot of extra software that actually we never really fully utilized before. But then since then, it was probably more like 4 years ago, we started this journey and really kind of research what is the potential and the benefits that the other software on the AEC collection can bring to us. And then since then, we started implementing actually almost everything except one, that is Formit. That internally in our firm, we have replaced Formit with Rhino and SketchUp as well. But I think we managed to take care and actually implement all the software really well among a curated workflow. So of course, we started every single new project, starting to set the shape coordinates and the site and everything using InfraWorks. Then we connected to Civil 3D, then we jump into Revit. Then of course, all the design process happens quite intensely in Revit and Dynamo as well. For all the visualization, we make a lot of use, of course, of 3D Studio Max. On the early stage, also we use Revit Live quite a lot, and then we swap, of course, to more Unreal and Inkscape versions. So I think it's at the beginning I was a little bit upset with kind of the full AEC collection, because I thought there was a lot of unnecessary things. But the more time we spent on it, then we realized there was great tools that actually can enhance the workflow quite a lot. So I think I can safely say today, we actually use almost 99% of the entire suite of the AEC collection. I also would like to encourage everybody to explore the other softwares as well, because they really have a place among your workflow.
Absolutely. So definitely getting your money's worth out of that collection.
Well, definitely,
Gary?
definitely.
Good stuff. Gary, if you can just take us through a little bit about the software options that CKR is currently using. I know that you've got many collections as well as some BIM licenses. Just share with us a little bit about what you're using and how those are an integral part in your day-to-day workflows.
I think it's the same as Boertman mentioned. It's also realizing all the applications that you have and how you can integrate all of them with one another. So currently in our office, depending on which office you look at, for example, our Joburg office is purely mechanical, electrical, wet services and fire. We mainly concentrate on using Revit, Navisworks, AutoCAD, and Dynamo in our workflows. We've also slowly but surely started incorporating the BIM360 suites as well for additional workflow optimization. And then if we go to our Pretoria office, we've got our structures department and civil department there, and they make use of advanced steel, civil 3D, vehicle tracking, again, Revit as well, and Navisworks as well. So we're also trying to utilize every application that is made available within the collection suite. And again, just looking at how we can optimize the workflows between those applications as well.
So as well, using just about 99% of all of those softwares within the collection, which is fantastic to hear. Hannes, from your side, for a company that has only been around for a few years and has grown from strength to strength, even now during this lockdown period, you have gone and growing still. So if you can just share with us how your workflows are between your internal departments, being purely civil and structural.
Thanks, Katie. Yes, from our side, being a relatively young company still, we just made the call initially to go fully on to Revit, and also then when BIM360 came around, to jump onto that as well, because we believe in terms of structures and civils, we need to drive efficiency within the company. And if everybody is not on board, be it whether it's structural or civil, we can't do that. So all the civil guys, they use Civil 3D. They're not fully integrated into BIM360 yet, and also using the truck tracking, as Herman and Michiel mentioned, or Gary mentioned earlier. And the structures guys are using mainly Revit. So, but everybody's on the full AEC collection and on BIM360.
Fantastic, fantastic. That will lead me to the next question about the processes that you use to collaborate and share design data with other disciplines within the project, because clearly we're not all working in silos, and that we need to share and receive data with other consultants and other parties. Just a little bit about how you do this workflow and what are the best practices that you have found over the years to be become company protocol. Let's start with Gary this time, maybe.
Okay, so our current process basically entails just agreeing protocols up front with the entire team, so the entire stakeholder team. You try and involve as many stakeholders as possible in the initiation stage of a project, and then you need to document it as well. So we generally make use of internal protocols and processes where we have an internal BIM execution plan. Before we extend it to the entire team, we make sure that we understand what is required from our side, from a services perspective. We get a clear understanding of that, and we'll do what we call a BIM kickoff meeting internally, based on the project and services that we will be providing for that particular project, and then we will take that further to the entire professional team.
And you
again,
found that this kickoff meeting, sorry, Gary, is an important element that needs to start the whole process. That is it a relatively new thing, or have you been doing it always on all projects?
We've been doing it for quite some time on projects, and again, I'm just talking about our internal process. Our CEO is quite pedantic with regards to doing organograms, with regards to project setups and stuff like that. Once we get a project, he would like to already at the beginning stages get the entire team involved in understanding who's going to be responsible for what. And we basically take that aspect and we just rolled it out as an internal BIM kickoff. And we go through the process of maybe if we have a project plan already at that kickoff, we would start discussing what our deliverables will be, how much time we would require to complete it, and then that information then gets passed on to the rest of the professional team. So when we get to our external BIM kickoff, we already have the answers that is required when it's asked, basically.
Fantastic, fantastic. Herman, I don't know if you've got anything to add to that from an architectural side, how you do things internally as well as externally with consultants and third parties?
Yes, I think something I just wanted to add is, if we compare the way we work today, maybe the way we worked 10 years ago, I wouldn't say buildings were more simple back then, but the volume of data that we exchange amongst one another was, I will say, quite a few times less. Construction sites became extremely complex as well as projects, and maybe a project that in the past would involve certain amounts of people now involve way more, many more other companies and a lot of specialist companies as well. So I did realize that we keep saying this over and over and over, but it's communication, communication, communication. It's all about how to set up clear ways to communicate. And I think Gary said really well at the beginning. It doesn't really matter the tools that you're going to use, either the people or the structure, if you don't set up clear ways on how people will communicate one another. And I think it's fundamental that each company has, of course, like Gary said, the internal protocols. But I think now we really understand the importance and the need of be able to set up a particular way or standard of protocol that informs all the companies related to a project on how they're going to communicate, how they're going to, and not just, now we're going beyond communication, is how we're going to package data, how we're going to structure it, how we're going to share it, how we're going to collaborate with the data. Because now data is not just a bunch of drawings, we're talking about data sets with naming conventions and structures and protocols. And in essence, a Revit file is a database, it's a data set. So I think it's now the most important time to really embrace the concept of employment information requirement, BIM execution plans. And it can be sometimes overwhelming documents, but it's fundamental now to say, this is how we're going to do things. And we do that right at the beginning. And if we're able to do that, then we choose the best tools for the job. We put the right teams in place, and then the job should be much easier. And I think we have, among the 3 companies that we have, we have really good examples and stories about when you do this in that particular way, things fall through and fall into place, and communication and coordination happens much easier.
I think I just want to add to what Herman and Gary said. I think internally communication and collaboration is really easy, but we've been struggling with external communication since everybody hasn't bought into the BIM360 packages. So that is a real difficulty, and I think that is a tool that can help a lot of us. And I think from a business owner point of view, initially you think it's a huge amount of money to spend, but if you break that down, if you save per employee depending on salaries, between half an hour and 2 hours a month, you pay for that license already.
Absolutely.
So that really made it worthwhile for us. And sometimes the business owners don't go into the software in that way, and you can't measure what you get, but actually you're getting a lot. So if everybody can see it in that way, it will help a lot to execute projects better.
Agreed, 100%. And that if there are any areas for improvement in any of these sort of aspects, besides the fact of getting everybody onto the same platform at the same time, any sort of advice out there that you could give us in terms of improvements or changes?
Are you referring to BIM360?
Well, to how you're running your internal collaboration and sharing of data, if there's anything that you could improve to make this a better flow or a better workflow internally for you?
I think internally we are working very well. The only issue is we are not able to issue drawing registers over BIM360 yet, so we still have to use an external software or third-party application, which make it a bit time-use. So if that can be incorporated, a lot of the issues will be gone.
Okay. Herman, any from your side? Any areas of improvement on currently what you are doing now?
Well, I think it's there are certain items like Hani said as well, like the drawing register always create an issue for us as well. And of course, when you started thinking about some extra functionality that we need sometimes on the documentation and coordination side, that sometimes falls maybe into other modules like build and all that kind of stuff. But I think is at the moment, it's not even training. It's about just mindset. You're just trying to change the mindset of internal stuff first, of course, getting the buy-in. And I think also Hani is such an important point it's easy. I think it's easy to kind of justify the return on investment of a tool like this. If your mind is set up on looking on efficiencies in a certain way, if your mind is to say, look, I just want to get the job done as quickly as I can, I don't get a tool, then you're not really going to consider this kind of stuff. So I think it's important to kind of say the tools, BIM360, the way also has evolved in the last 5 years is incredible. And also the way and maybe the direction that it's going is crazy. And also we have seen the tool moving away from a kind of like isolating common data environment to a now more open source kind of environment. And now through BIM360 docs, you can actually connect to multiple other platforms and really became that common central repository. So I think that's kind of the challenge and the teams that we're going at the moment to try and to understand how much we can put and how much we can connect and be able to try to concentrate all the information into one place. That's what currently we focus a lot of attention at the moment.
Gary, anything that you could add on improving your internal systems? Thanks, Herman.
I think if we're talking about functionality, especially from the BIM360 side, I think we need to start looking at the markup, your markup tools that you have. It's quite rudimental. If we think about the process that we follow in our office. So we've built quite a bit of data sets and stuff like that for Bluebeam, for our engineers to actually start putting down symbology and things like that. For marking up drawings and doing redlining and things like that. You know, we've obviously looked at the markups in markup tools in BIM360. We have guys using it, but now the guys are writing paragraphs, you know, trying to explain what it entails or what they need to be done on the drawing. Whereas previously with a Bluebeam markup or whatever else, you would just plot down little symbols and you would be able to get what needs to be done. So I don't see there's a functionality in there for doing symbols. I might be wrong. I haven't seen it as yet. But giving us the ability to build our own tool sets for markups, that would be quite a nice feature to add, especially from a services perspective. Other than that, I've got the same gripe with drawing registers. It might seem like something that is it's not really important, but I've seen in projects how important that can become. I've been working on a couple of methods of trying to incorporate Power BI because the data is sitting inside of BIM 360. I'm just trying to get that data out in a format that I can use to actually see if we can create a drawing register out of it. But other than that, if that functionality can be added, you know, it saves us time when trying to find workarounds inside of the software.
Thanks, Gary. Michiel, I don't know if you want to add anything there in terms of the functionalities and the workarounds.
Well, my opinion is if we're talking about BIM360 docs as a common data environment and the last file uploaded is your last source of truth, then ultimately you don't need a drawing register. But that's, I think, still a personal opinion I have, which I can't agree, that a lot of people won't agree with me on that front.
Sorry, Michiel, just to butt in there, I think your idea is 100% correct. We just need to educate the contractors to use BIM360 as well. But I don't see, they only use a 5% functionality of the software. So sometimes for them to buy it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, no, and I agree with that. There's a whole industry shift that needs to happen. That will eventually come, but at this point, we still need that drawing register. Just a quick question from the chat. I'm just quickly looking for it. And Herman, I think I'm going to start with you. Do you find yourself being selective when choosing external consultants to join you on a project base, especially around BIM? Basically, are you looking for guys that can work in 3D, or doesn't it really matter?
I think it's a really interesting question. I will say 5 years ago, it's whoever the client decided. And then interesting enough, you go through that project and you go through a lot of teaching and through a lot of education. And then after you manage to finish the project on time with a lot of reduced clash on site, and the client started seeing the benefit of it, like, well, this workflow works really well. And then we started seeing, like, every time with the same clients, the second project came through, and then it's really started understanding that we need to now do things a certain way. And they eventually hear the word BIM and they keep repeating, and they say, okay, just choose BIM. Let's do BIM on this one. What do you need to do BIM? And then we're like, okay, we need to set up a process. We need you to understand this and that and that. And also we need people that really push and be capable to do so. So I would say comfortably to today, most of our clients, well, maybe let's say 50%, cannot really understand the value. They don't understand BIM 100%, but they understand that doing things a certain way with a particular workflow, it saves time, it saves issues. So it's not by coincidence that, well, Bochum works a lot with CKR Restructured at the moment. And that's because there are companies that they have upgraded the workflows, they have changed the mentality, they equip themselves with the best tools suited for the job. And now we're working a lot of projects with them when we have a seamless BIM process, meaning we have a project in BIM360, all the three companies are using BIM360 design, the model sits on the cloud, the workflows happens there, the coordination happens on the cloud as well. We still, all of us, struggling now to kind of break that line between the design world and the construction world. Because when we hit construction, then we issue PDF, and that's it. All the beautiful data sets stop. But that's what we're pushing for. So kind of answer your question is, yes, we have seen internally in Bochum and externally with the clients, we're actually now looking for people, looking for partners that allow us to work on a BIM environment, because you cannot do a proper BIM workflow on your own as a company. To have a BIM project well developed, well documented, you need to have the professional team all involved, from your PM because the waterproofing specialist to really understand the workflow, all of them working. So I think that's happening, and it's happening quite a lot. And luckily, well, it's helping us to get projects faster.
Thank you. Yeah, and I think that helps a lot with the question from, I think it was Johan, can't remember. Hannes, just a quick question for you. Since you're a small company, Simon, Montford asked, I can't quite see the payback you talk, as we issue most, if not all, our drawings electronically and use cloud storage and file sharing already, admittedly not as contained with the AEC industry and not as nearly as elegantly as BIM360. Please help me understand your assertion that BIM360 pays for itself in the South African context in a scenario like mine. Just where professionals are not everyone is on Revit and not everyone is working with BIM. And specifically because I know you guys basically buy a Revit license and you buy a BIM license with that. So I think you would be a great person to answer that.
Yes. I think because we have three offices, both in Pretoria, Durban, and Stellenbosch, we collaborate in between offices. So it's very easy for somebody working in Durban and in Joburg to collaborate on one model at the same time, or to share models. So that works quite well. Then and BIM360 is our data hub for our Revit files. So all our Revit files live in BIM360. Nothing is saved on a SharePoint or a OneDrive or anything. The next thing is just to when you issue drawings, you actually publish it as a PDF. So I don't know if you're familiar with the older way of doing it. You have to print each page as PDF. Now you can you use the OCR tool within BIM360, and it automatically reads your title block and publishes your PDFs and saves it as the latest version on BIM360. I believe only that tool will make it worthwhile. if to get all your PDFs named correctly and then upload it to your software doing your drawing registers. So we save a lot of time just using that tool. So to further explain it, I mean, Katie, you can come in. A license is about 11.5, 12 grand, excluding VAT. If you divide that by 12, it's 1,000 rand a month. So 1,000 rand.
Just about, yes.
Yeah, it's about depending on salary, where you sit with your salary, it's anything between 3 hours to 1 hour of time that you need to, or that you need to save. 30 minutes even.
Just to add on to that, Hannes, as well, from our side as well, what we've picked up. So our setup that we have in our offices, we also Joburg, Joburg, Cape Town, KZN, and Pretoria, and we've got a VPN setup between our offices where we have users that can actually see files that are sitting on a server in our Cape Town office. What we've picked up now with regards to COVID-19 is we find it a bit more seamless working through BIM360 than working through a VPN, because the guys doesn't have to now log into a VPN and then from the VPN basically start extracting data and things like that. So you need an internet connection, you then need to log onto a VPN, and then you can start extracting the data. So now, because of BIM360, you're directly going into the cloud and extracting that information, which is a single source of traffic going up and down. And it's not a four-way traffic if you get into the technicalities of the data and so forth.
I've also
it helps a lot.
Yeah, I've also come across, we use Microsoft Teams as well, or the Office 365 packages. And I've recently come across a workflow that you can actually link BIM360 into your Teams mobile, into your Teams application. So you can actually work. Yeah, you can actually work while you're in Teams, access a BIM360 file or view it. So it's I haven't explored it enough to comment further, but it is possible as well.
It's also a fantastic tool because I actually do that.
Yeah.
Can you maybe elaborate on that a bit?
It's basically just adding a tab to your Teams, which is a web page, and you link your BIM360 project link to that in Teams. And then you can basically see the dashboard, and you can go into all the folders, and you can view the model via Teams. So the way I've set it up in our office is giving our engineers and our teams a single source or a single application, and linking all these other tools that we have in the background into that single application. And Teams is becoming my interface for that. Because we've got various other tools that we use, like Box, and we've got our project information management system that we're linking in BIM360, and various other types of tabs and tools that we apply in there as well.
I just want to add something here. It's that I think if we look, we really have to compare apples with apples sometimes, and I don't think we can do right now. If you compare maybe a perspective of BIM360 with a shapefile system. So for instance, Bochum in the last 4 years, we have been through almost now 4 different platforms. And I think it's the first thing we have to always remember ourselves and everybody, and especially our directors, is to say that there is one constant thing that is change.
Be careful what you say now, Herman.
Yeah, no, don't worry. They know me already. But and I'm the first one to say, we keep saying the only constant thing is change, and we're saying, and it sounds beautiful to say, but we have to believe it. And I think COVID now shows us again that we don't really know what's going to happen next week. We don't know what's going to happen next month. And many of us 2 years ago, we are not implemented BIM360. And now here we are. Maybe the next year, it's not going to be BIM360 anymore. It's going to be a different platform. It's not going to be cloud. It's going to be hybrid and this and this and this. So, I mean, like I said before, Bochum has been through 4 different platforms. And we are really kind of make peace with the fact of you cannot just get a platform and trying to cruise on that platform for the next 4 years, because it's going to change and it's going to evolve, and you need to evolve because your project needs is evolved. That's why I keep saying, like, if you look at BIM360 docs as a place to just share information, put a bunch of files and be able to see it, then of course you're not going to get your money back, because BIM360 docs is a much bigger platform and requires a much more comprehensive workflow to really utilize fully. So now if you have multiple office positions, or not even multiple office locations. You just have maybe one office, but you give the privilege, like for instance, Structure does at the moment, that I think is great, to tell most of us employers, look, if you want to work from home today, do so, because we have all the workflows in place to do it without disturbing the workflow. So now you have a platform like BIM360 Docs that allows you to do so, and then it's connected with BIM360 Design. So now you have 2 engineers and 1 draftsman working on the same Revit file without having to put in a WeTransfer that we know most of us use. And then that file, we ended up lost it somewhere and all that kind of stuff. It's a lot of rework. And also, if you're a big company, or actually you have a big IT infrastructure, that you have a well set up VPN connection. Like for instance, CKR says it has, and we have as well. We have 6 office locations, and we have a really well developed VPN connection among them. So we've been using VPN to work on the same files. And now when we did the switch over to BIM360 Design, our data consumption was quarter compared to using VPN connection. Our speed triples from BIM360 Design to VPN. So now we have almost 70% of projects across Bochum, is all of them located on BIM360 Design. So if you want to go to the detail, you can even just compute how much data you're saving, how much time you're saving every synchronize. And if you run the numbers, Bochum already pay itself. There's no question about that. And especially if you're a small company and you don't have the money to set up a VPN infrastructure, then this is the way to go. For me, is your return on investment is be able to have Martin, that is a real experienced architect from us in Bochum, and Johannesburg, working along Joffrey in Durban on the same file. That's just fantastic, working seamlessly. So I think that's kind of the workflows that if you really implement and develop the whole picture around it, you're going to work much more efficiency. And I think that's what people need to kind of understand. See the whole workflow. I know it's difficult to do so, and maybe sometimes difficult to implement, but you're really going to get your money back. That's my opinion.
Thanks, guys. I just want to go back to the questions that have come in. There was a question from Ian with regards to, I just want to quickly find it. Sorry. Do you find yourselves having to be selective in the external consultants' approach to join you on projects based on the aptitude that they have with BIM?
I don't know. I think, Herman, you want to answer that one?
I hate Gary. I'm trying to avoid Gary in every single project. Nah, look, I think actually we're beyond tools. Look, if you give me the options, I would love to say I want this guy and this guy and this guy, but it's not about that. It's about how we always started every new project is, okay, guys, this is a project, this is what we have to do. What are the best tools and the best way of doing it? And we're not, maybe I shouldn't say this, but we're not married with Autodesk or age specific tool. It's all about what is the best tool to get the job done quicker, easier, and faster. And well, of course, you implement BIM360 Docs, a lot of that. But I think it's always a good and really interesting challenge to have new consultants that are brand new. And in the first meeting, they were like, sorry, what do you say? BIM, what's that? I use CAD, is that fine? And then there's nothing wrong with that, because it's a really interesting challenge now to make that team part of the process. And also I think it's great to have this kind of devil's advocate, because then this is the guys that force you to keep yourself efficient and not just go again with the speech of let's go BIM, because this guy will be like, okay, but why want to do it that way? Because you want so? And then no, it's because, okay, let's reinvestigate and research, and we're like, because of this and this and this. And then 99% of the time, you find the guy says like, well, this is actually great. Yeah, let's do it. And of course, it takes longer and takes a lot of education and a lot of pain and frustrations, but then you see it through. I think that's kind of like the beauty of that challenge. Gary, what do you think?
I agree with you. It's like you said, we sometimes do wish that we can select who we want to work with and who we need to work with. But the more you start working with consultants that is not on this platform, and their attitude is towards changing and making it and wanting to make it work, I think then it becomes a win for the industry in South Africa, because then we're going to have more people working on the platforms and being able to do what currently a select few can do. And it's about education. And as the more we start working with other people, and the more we start working with consultants that requires the expertise and the need, the more we grow as an industry. Ultimately, that would be my take on that aspect.
Absolutely. Just a funny story is like we were working on a project in Pretoria a couple of months ago. And then this first project meeting, and we got introduced, and we got this guy from here, and we got some of the big guys, some of the small guys, and we got this web service. It was a couple. It was a wife and husband that they have their own little web service thing, and of course they do CAD. So at the beginning I thought like, okay, this is going to be interesting, but it was a fantastic journey because we got these two people company. We took through the process, and they love it, and they saw a lot of efficiency on it. And then you can see how a two-person company started, and then all of a sudden, by the end of the project, they were fully integrated into the process. They love it. They upskilled themselves, and by the end of the project, they became almost like these new ambassadors of the process. They were going to everybody's like, yeah, we're doing BIM, and we learn it. And that's what we want for the industry. Now everybody kind of upskills and kind of raise the tide, as we say.
If only it was like that. Yeah. Hannes, anything from your side?
Me too. I think they covered it. Can't add to that.
Perfect. One of the other questions, guys, that have come through is if you had to put a time frame to having acquired your licenses of BIM to the way that you would like them to work, not the way that they're working currently internally, the way that you personally or professionally would like them to work, how long is this time frame?
I'm going to be a straight shooter and say it depends. It depends on the staff and the people that you're working with. Your timeline can go from 24, 36, 48 months or to 12 months, depending on how willing your staff members are to change. Except or remove the old ways of working and finding optimized ways of doing the same thing that you've done for the last 20 years, but finding another optimized way of doing it. The biggest problem that I have of implementing software for the last 10 years is change management. That's the biggest issue. I was just
going to say, I think change management is one of the biggest hurdles that we all have to face. And once we've overcome that mindset of adapting the new workflow and the new way of thinking, the first hurdle has already been accomplished. Herman, I don't know if you've had any other obstacles exactly like that, maybe with regards to changing mindsets internally.
I have a lot, but I think we need another webinar for that. And I can see on the chat, there's a few of my directors are sitting here, so let's just do it another day. No, but I think it's I think change management, but change management is remember, it's not just the top. It's the top, middle, bottom is all of us. And I was the first one to be there a couple of years ago thinking, I'm fine, I don't need to learn this. So I think change management started with one, and many times we reflected on the person above us, blaming them, but we personally have nothing to change it. But I think I just love the story of COVID-19 because I saw this image the other day that the people were saying like, oh, digital transformation is fine, we're doing really well, and then COVID came, and then all the offices were upside down completely, and everybody was running, trying to see how they're going to be able to work remotely. So I think we need to constantly keep looking to do things better way. And that saying the sense, if it's not broken, don't change it. I don't believe it. It's like, if it's not broken, make it better. If it's not broken, it's about to break anytime. So just find a better way. So I think it's like Hannes said before, it's COVID was a really bad thing happened to all of us, but it created this kind of collateral catalyst that it forced all of us to really think differently. And I really hope that all of us that have been through this digital transformation, I really hope that all of us believe on the transformation, on the digital transformation itself. And then as soon as COVID-19 came back to normal and all of us go back to normal, don't forget about the journey we have been through and keep pushing it without having to have another pandemic in front of us. So then think on the next cloud. So I think that's kind of my takeaway on it.
So I just want to go back to your question, Katie, where how long does it take to implement? I think from our side, I think it was relatively quickly. I think within a week you can implement the basics.
Yep.
And then to get fully into the software, we're still not there, and we've been using it for 2 years. So the guys get set into the basics and then explore the additional features, which can be quite helpful. But as Herman has said now, COVID has forced us to explore those features further. But to get set up is relatively quickly.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Okay. Let's have a look what else has come through. Any sort of patterns in errors, emissions, and the need for reworks? Do you have any guidelines on this, on how things can be changed internally?
I think from our side, the biggest rework is, again, from everybody not using the software and having to import exported models into BIM and then exporting again. So that is the biggest issue on our side. That causes a lot of rework.
Gary, any input from your side?
I think from a services perspective, I've been chatting to our board of directors with regards to the way we share information with depending on the stage and where we are in the project. I'm basically saying that as far as possible, we only start modeling and start creating actual models at stage 3, between stage 3, stage 4. The reasons for this, and this is my opinion around that, is there's a lot of design work that still gets done from an architectural perspective, making sure that spaces has been provided for the services, making sure that all our requirements has been addressed throughout the design. What I've picked up is that when we're too hasty to start modeling from a service perspective, we get a lot of rework. Simple things like, as an example, simple things like a level needs to change because the surveyed information actually came through. There's a level that needs to be updated. Once that level is updated, we need to relink our models, or our service models, and then we pick up, okay, now all our ducts is disconnected, all our pipes are disconnected, all the cable trays is not connected properly. That causes a rework. So I think it's more of a process that we need to address to mitigate a lot of rework. But over time, we will find the right recipe. It's for me, it's still a work in progress.
Absolutely.
Unfortunately, some guys that you work with would say, okay, no, a Bluebeam markup will assist in the process for coordinating things like shafts and plant spaces and so forth. But some guys would say, no, we want a 3D model, and we want a 3D model from the beginning stages of the project. I mean, you don't understand the amount of rework that happens from a services perspective, even if a wall has been moved from one position to another position. Simple examples that I'm making. But I think it's more of a process that needs to be addressed, not just from a building services perspective, but as a project as a whole. And that is the important bits. We're getting as many stakeholders as possible in the initiation stages of the project to understand what is required for our mechanical guys in the architectural model, what is required for our electrical, and so on and so on, will obviously make that process a little bit easier. You see, we want to stay away from rework, because ultimately, who's paying for
money.
the rework?
I was just going to say, every single rework costs somebody some money.
And you can't go back to the client and say, no, because we're redesigning this, we're going to charge you again.
Absolutely.
It just doesn't work that way.
In the ideal world, maybe.
Yes, of course. In our little utopias we have.
Absolutely. Herman, I don't know if you've got anything to add to Gary's input.
Just, I totally agree with him. I think it's for the companies that have been doing BIM for quite some time, I did realize that sometimes you tend to go the other way. Like you push the pendulum too much, and then you get really excited about modeling everything, and it's fantastic because you can see, and then immediately you start a project, you want to model absolutely everything, and then you think like, okay, cool, then we're going to use Navisworks to coordinate later on, it will be fantastic. But then we forgot the good value that it has, the old good paper discussion on the first meeting that we said. And I remember we have a few of those with Hannes in a project we did long ago with a colleague of ours, Greg. It was fantastic because it's like BIM has its place, and of course, and it will follow. That's why if you follow a proper BIM execution plan, then you introduce level of detail from 100 to 500. And at the beginning, you don't have to jump straight away and put your ducts and put your pipes and put your slabs. It's about, let's make sense of this building. And for that, you don't even need a single piece of 3D geometry. You need people around the table. And like Gary said, you need all the stakeholders because you cannot have a separate structure building in reality and then trying to merge it with a mechanical. A building is a holistic component and it has to be designed and developed like such. So I think it's, especially I think in architecture, we've been really slow as a profession to upgrade our processes. Forget about technology in the process, just the process itself. How you do architecture, how you design, how you communicate, how you collaborate, independent of technology. And I draw a lot of analogies with newer disciplines and professions like software developers. That if you chat with any of them, they will talk you about scrums and sprints and agile workshops and design thinking. And I'm like, what are you talking about? They come up with much better and newer ways of thinking and communicating according to the times and according to the tools. So I think it's really important that we kind of sometimes refresh our ideas and our processes, go back to zero, put all the people right at the beginning of a project, even if the project is 2 years ahead. Put all the guys and say, guys, how this building is going to operate, how it's going to look like, how the students will coordinate it. And for that, you don't really need even to touch a computer. So if you solve that correctly, and then you put all the information, you process it, put into the document, a good BIM execution plan, the rest follows. And then the geometry comes at the time that the geometry needs to appear at a certain level of detail and a certain level of information as well. And then it follows. But in order to do that, then you really have to kind of develop or maybe mature a BIM process. And that's a good BIM execution plan will come into place. So I really believe so. I was the guy there that said, let me do a model quickly. I want to do it quickly and just wait. First, let's talk principles. And I think that's the best we can do still today. And then tools and technology and processes will plug into the right places.
Totally agree.
Hannes, anything additional?
Yeah, I agree with Herman, but the computers can never replace your logic. So, but you need them to be more efficient. So I 100% agree with what was said.
Great, thank you. So moving on to the next question, to what extent have you used other features within BIM360 design? All three of your companies have got BIM360 design. Are you using it just to collaborate, remote working, or are you using issues such as markup, change visualization, and things like that?
I think maybe if I jump quickly on that one, of course, like you said, the long-hanging fruit is remote collaboration, but then specifically BIM360 design, the design module. It's I think we're using quite a lot of the functionality of the published sets now that allows to just release certain package for approval and then connect that to a certain workflow. So now you can say, I'm releasing the tiny layout as a set. And then that's a set gets approved on the project and then gets connected to a workflow that it goes to a director. Directors approve or reject the package, and it goes back to the draftman and all that kind of stuff. So I think it's an incredible functionality. we're still trying to wrap a head around with the sets and the publishings and the packages and all the kind of stuff, but it has huge, huge potential that I think once you then connect your set as an architect, connected with the set of the structural engineer and connected with the mechanical engineers, all of them working on the same set of packages at the same time. So you don't have the structural engineer working on the staff drainage system and then the mechanical guys doing the penthouse mechanical equipment, because it's not point on that. So I think in BIM360 design, that's a great functionality that allows everybody to focus into it and release certain package for approval. I think that's maybe from our side.
I think from our side, one of my co-executives, Chris Streeter, has recently used it on one of the sites on his iPad. He did a complete walkthrough, showed the guys the structural steel roof on his iPad, and everybody could easily visualize the connections and what it's going to be in a couple of months' time. So that was one situation. And we are also exploring the way to do reports better. So do your RFIs and your NCRs on BIM360 itself. So we're still busy on the process. I haven't finalized it yet, but we're certainly exploring it hard on our side.
From our side, we've delved into the markup section. A lot of my engineers is currently enjoying the fact that they have a markup tool while they can view the actual model and the sheets, and they don't need to ask for PDFs to be printed and emailed to them anymore. Once the guys are done working, they can publish the information, and the information becomes readily available for them to start viewing and start reviewing. I'm currently looking into the review process, basically creating the 2-3 step review process for signing off drawings internally before we start publishing externally. I'm still investigating issues. I would love to start a project where we're using the actual design collaboration features, because a lot of projects that we're currently working on, the guys are using the legacy BIM360 team method, where we're just doing cloud work sharing, basically. And then the visualization tool for showing changes. I think one of my engineers, he just loves that tool. He would sit for freaking hours on a model and going and clicking and checking what's new, what has been updated, what has been modified, what has been changed. So yeah, it's obviously still a learning curve for us as well. But as we go along, we will start improving and start implementing more and more of the functionalities that is made available to us. Unfortunately, we don't have access yet to the project management side, so I can't really comment on that. We're not using coordination as yet, but from the BIM360 design and documentation side, I'm quite excited to see what happens post COVID-19 internally in our office.
I must say, I was waiting for any of you to mention the compare tool. I'm blaming on the architect that we changed all the stuff.
Yeah, we use that often, eh?
I can imagine. I use it.
IFCs.
Yeah, I use it all the time. Every time we receive the model from the structure engineer, of course not from Structured, because they work really well. But it's fantastic. And like Gary said, every time you show that to one of your colleagues, they compare that and they're like, this is amazing. This is great. That already paid itself. Because I think it's the fact that be able to identify what has been added, what has been modified, what has been removed between versions, and have control all of that, especially visual control, because we have done that in the past using Navisworks, and it was great, but it was painful. But I think now comparing versions, but what's happened to us now, and I think Gary and Hannes know this really well, it's now in an ideal world, version 1 to version 2 to version 3 should be slight changes. But what's happened to us now, we got version 1 that is a 13-story building, and version 2 is a basement underground with a casino on the top. The changes between versions is drastic. So sometimes when you compare, it's not the same building anymore. But I think it's a fantastic tool that really allows you to get grasp of what has been changed, what has been modified. And that's really important, because now you got such a volume of data in each model, and to keep track of all of that is a really challenging process. And I think that's why I think that tool is fantastic.
And it's not just about the visualization with regards to what has changed and how it's changed and what has been modified. I think where most of my engineers is actually finding the value of being able to click on the architectural model is to view it in 3D. Start cutting sections through the model, especially where you have complex surfaces and levels that you're working with in a project. You can't generally, we all trained to look at a 2D drawing and you'll be able to 3D visualize that in your mind. But being able to click on a 3D model to see, where's the level change actually happening, and being able to immediately not try and figure it out, you can immediately just see on your screen, this is where the level changes is going to be. Oh, my duct is not going to work here, or a pipe route is not going to work here because this is happening and that is happening. A lot of my guys are saying that it's been assisting them in easily understanding what the design requirement was, or what the architect is intending in his design, which assists his process ultimately for designing his system ultimately.
Anything additional, guys? We'll move to the closing of the webinar.
I would just like to add there. Sorry, Katie.
No, please go ahead, Michiel.
Yeah. So I mean, the 3D tool for me, and especially for the clients I've dealt with, is an amazing feature. And what I actually like about it is the fact that not only, like you mentioned, Gary, that you can actually see the design in 3D, but you can also do markups in 3D. And keep record of that process. So it's not just the markups on 2D plans, and you have to remember to look at a section somewhere else. The other part, and it ties in with what Hannah said before, with the published PDFs to the plan section with the OCR reader, and even the Revit files, is the hyperlinking between sections and plans. For me, it's also a great feature. I don't know if you guys agree, but where you can, in a plan view, you can see the section line, and you can click on the section head and it'll jump to a sheet or a view where that section is hosted, and you can instantly see that information in relationship to each other. That's basically all I wanted to add.
It's the little things in life that excites us.
It's good to have the little things in life.
I think just one thing to add with the modeling, we've recently employed different guys from different companies and different backgrounds, and all of them are taught differently. So I would strongly encourage guys to jump onto Revit, not to try and teach yourself. There's a right way of doing the modeling. It might seem slow at the beginning, but just speak to the guys from Modena and maybe get some training on it. It might seem worthless, but in the long run, you will see the value.
Thanks so much for that, Hannes. That's very kind of you of saying that. If I could ask maybe each one of you to share a last parting thought on your experience with any of the BIM products, specifically BIM360 design. If there's any advice that you can give to all the people attending this webinar, any sort of pros or cons, just a parting thought before we close off. Nobody.
I think Gary needs to start.
All I can say is implementing new ways and processes is a daunting task. However, once things starts working and the process works, it's such a rewarding feeling. Like I said, now it's the little things that it's the small wins that I celebrate, because the small wins contributes to the big ones that we celebrate in the office. My advice to everybody that is listening would be that if you're planning on implementing any new platform in your office, get everybody on board. Don't start from the bottom up. Start from the top down. Get your CEO on board. Get your board of directors on board. And then you work your way down to everyone else in your office. Because the moment you have their backing to implement new ways of doing things, it becomes a little bit easier to change the thought process between the different departments that you're going to be working with. I've learned that over the last couple of years. I worked for an auditors reseller as well, and our approach was, and I think this was across the board. It was from the bottom up. You know, it was a thing of the drawing office works with Revit. Let's get the drawing office to implement the software, and then you would start with the draftsman and make sure that they understand it, and you would try and sell that concept going up. And after a few years, I realized that is not working, and my approach changed, and I said, no, we're working from the top down. And the moment we started working from the top down, you could see a change throughout the entire organization, you know, because it's not just Gary. Yeah, it's not just Gary talking about BIM adoption. It's not just Gary talking about change management. It's our CEO talking about change management. It's our department directors and business unit heads that is talking about building information modeling. And because of that, you know, it started getting your more junior staff a little bit more excited about actually wanting to learn new things and wanting to change the way they do things and wanting to get to know more about it. So try and get your leaders on board as fast as you can for any form of software or change management that you want to do in your office.
Thanks, Gary. I agree with you 100%. It does come from top down, and there'll always be teething problems along the way. But as long as you put your head down and carry on, we should be able to get to the end in a relatively quick manner.
Yeah,
Hannes, anything from you? No, exactly. Don't give up. And there are challenges along the way, and you will get knocked down. And the biggest thing is to get up and carry on, because learning something new, doing something in a different way is not always easy to accept, but in the long run, it will become the norm as opposed to change.
Yeah, I can add to that. When I was at my previous employer, their BIM coordinator lead from the UK came to South Africa to speak to all of us, and that was in 2012, 2013, and he mentioned that in 10 years' time, some of us will be out of a job if you don't know the software. So that really made me think, and the way that they've been implementing it in the UK and in other countries, they are 5-6 years ahead of us, and we have a lot of catch-up work to do. So that's why we as Structured is driving it to stay in front, and really seeing the value of that.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Thank you, Hannes. Herman, last words from your side?
Well, I think Hannes and Gary said really well. Change management is the first thing you need to top. Culture is, for me, the most important thing. You need to work with culture. You need to change your culture. So doesn't matter how aggressive, how junior guys aggressive for technology you can have. If you don't have a culture that really allows constant change and dynamic, then not much is going to happen. So I think it's really important for all the companies now. And I think COVID has done a great job in that, to really force the culture to change and kind of give us a good shake. That's what for me is really important now, is after all of this happened, is we shouldn't go back to our old habits and go back to our old tools. This is a really good time to rethink a process, to rethink the way. Instead of thinking on your business today, think on your business in the next 5 years and 10 years. Where do you want your business to be? Which kind of company you want to be, which kind of sector you want to claim. And if you really take a decision on that and believe it, then the tools will come, the process will come, the rest, everything will fall into place. The right people will fall into place, the right tools, and then you're going to find yourself 2 years down the line having a completely different clientele, because the clients that you're going to attract is the clients that you want and not the clients that you get. The people that is going to be knocking on your door to say, want to work in your company, is the people that believe on the same ethos and the culture that you have developed. That's why for me, culture is the most important thing. You're going to just trying to implement a brand new tool and hope people to just embrace it and be forward thinking if your culture doesn't say so. So I think it's really important, like Gary said, start from the top, really think on the next 5 years and which kind of company we want to be. And I think it's easy for me to say, think on the next 5 years when we don't know what's going to happen next week. And if your business is going to be able to come back to work or not. So that's really challenging. So there was a presentation we did some time ago and it says, guys, one thing is certain is uncertainty. So now you need to be able to learn how to work and operate on uncertainty in times and thrive on it. So you're not going to be able to do a business strategy for the next 5 years that is solid anymore. I don't think so. You need to be able now to create an agile business that allows you to quickly react overnight.
Yes.
And be able to implement the right tools. You need to be able to lower and speed up your processes and be able to have somebody join your company tomorrow, but next week you got it fully operational and not take you 6 months to do so.
To get them up and running.
Absolutely, absolutely. And all of that, I think, started with the most difficult thing, that is creating culture. Culture is built from the top and falls all the way down. So I'm a strong believer on that. And I strongly believe that if you set up it correctly, the best tools and the best workflows and the best people will come. People, process, and technology. And you're going to find yourself with great people who are really enthusiastic to work with you and do great buildings. And you're going to find yourself like hacking BIM360 in ways that you will not believe. So you will be downloading Revit 2020, 21 and doing generative design. And it's like right now implementing generative design to actually do temporary hospitals, bed calculation and allocation and all that kind of stuff. So I think possibilities are like insane. And it's great things we can do. That's just my take on it.
Thank you, Herman. I was going to comment as well that it is the right people, the right processes, and then obviously bringing technology and making sure that we're all in the heart of all three of those circles, so to say.
And the right internet speed as well.
Well, we can beg to differ sometimes about that. In South Africa, we're behind with a lot. And I think, as you say, this COVID experience, it has pushed our internet providers to the max. And they've surprised us a little bit. There aren't any other questions that have come through. So I think that I'll close off for the afternoon. I just want to thank each one of you, Herman, Hannes, Gary, for giving up your time this afternoon to share your insights, your comments, your visions with everybody who's attended this afternoon. And I hope that everyone that has listened has found the session insightful and useful, and that there were some tips or comments or advice that you can bring into your own businesses in the future. There will be a recording of the session available on our website shortly after the session has ended. And there will also be an email that is going to be sent out from Zoom. Just please, if you could take a few minutes to complete the survey questions. We always like to get feedback, whether critical or comments or complimentary. It always helps us to do better the next time round. So thank you, gentlemen, for attending and giving up your time, and for everybody who signed in and commented and asked some questions. Have a lovely afternoon, guys.
Perfect.
Thanks everyone.
Bye-bye. Thanks a lot.
Cheers.
Thanks, Katie.
Thanks, guys.
Cheers.